I disagree with this concept that masculinity is toxic. Society needs masculine men that are willing to step up into their godly role. I was married to a very passive man. I felt like I completely emasculated him, and he let me. Skylar didn't have to use bigness in order to get me to submit. He used love and directness. Are you willing to lead first and lead in healing and love them like the Lord would love them? Because if you're not bringing the stimulus, today we're going to dive into the masculine men that our society needs, that your children need, and that we as women need. See, I disagree with this concept that masculinity is toxic. Anything in the extremes can be toxic and unhealthy and not be good. And I believe that society needs masculine men that are going to have some of these qualities I'm going to talk about, that are willing to step up into their godly role over their family and over their communities desperately. We need it desperately. And so if you're a man that might not want to hear a direct message and a call up, and you're unwilling to see the things that you might not be doing well, and you take feedback personally, this isn't going to be the video for you, because I'm going to very directly say ways that we as women might need you to step up. See, I'm a super strong woman, and I love that my husband is stronger than me. Before I met Skylar, we've been married 15 years now. Before I met Skylar, I was married to a very passive man. And that passivity and my choices allowed me to control, manipulate, and create a horrible marriage, created a divorce immediately. It was horrible. I felt like I completely emasculated him, and he let me. See, immediately when I met Skylar, I knew he was stronger than me, and I knew I wanted to follow him because of his kind leadership. See, I used to use bigness and anger in order to push my way with him and in order to manipulate him. And one day I was doing it in the bathroom. We were starting to argue, and I was starting to get a little bit heated, and I started to puff up a little bit. He said my body actually began to puff up, so that he's taller than me, but I guess I was unconsciously trying to get bigger than him to push my way. And he said, "What are you doing, Jessica?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? What am I doing?" And it shocked me though, because he's like, "Stop, what are you doing?" And he's like, "You're trying to get bigger to push me." He's like, "Hey, we're not going to do that right now." And thankfully, I know he loves me. I know he's there for me, but it was what I needed in the moment. Like, he needed to have tough love in that moment and not let me push him. And that level of love, because how could he have responded in that moment? He could have gotten bigger also, and he could have tried to use his force. And I think that's where men get a bad rep in society right now, right? If they use their force in unhealthy ways to make a woman submit. Skylar didn't have to use bigness or my way in order to get me to kind of back down and submit. He used love and directness, and he shown up and backed up his leadership and continued to be consistent as a man. And then I was willing to back down. See, if he would have allowed me to just use my bigness and manipulate him in that situation, we would create collectively an unhealthy dynamic where I treat him like a pushover, and I get big, and then I get my way, and then he feels bad, and then he never says anything, and we would create a very dysfunctional relationship, in my opinion, in the balance of masculine and feminine, right? I would then be showing up more in my masculine, and he would be showing up more in his feminine. And thank goodness he's willing to step in and have hard conversations and stop it when he sees it. See, Skylar's led in our relationship, not only by doing things like that, but also when I was unhealthy and I would run out of the room and slam the door and expect him to follow me. He was the one that led in saying, "Hey, babe, I love you, and we're not going to do that anymore." Like, what? Right? He didn't say it in that moment because that wouldn't have worked very well. But later on, he set standards our entire relationship when we've watched shows that are on normal TV. And he's like, "Hey, I don't think we should watch those anymore. Those aren't going to feed our minds of what a healthy relationship looks like." I remember very early on when we met, Cosmo magazines and magazines like that were out. And he's like, "Hey, I don't want you to be reading those. Like, what are you talking about? You don't want me to be reading those? He's like, yeah, I don't want you to get your idea of what a relationship should be like from that. I don't think they're a good influence on you. So he has constantly been aware of where we are going as a husband and a wife and as a family, and has been willing to step into the gap and step into hard conversations, whether I agreed with it or not. So he was willing to take a stand for our family. So I want you to check in as a man. The men we need, the masculine men society needs, are men that are clear on where they are going, what they want for their marriages, for their families, and that are willing to take part in shaping that, sometimes by having hard conversations. Secondly, I believe that Skylar sees leading as a privilege. Now, not just leading in getting things done, but he leads first in humbleness, in dropping his pride, and being the first one to forgive. I wish I could say that that was me in our relationship. And I've asked him many times, like, why do you not resent me for struggling sometimes to lean in when you're willing to lean in first? And he has said, Jessica, I see it as a privilege. I see it as my right and my duty as a man. If I'm going to lead you, then I have to be willing to go first. I'm not going to ask you to do something that I'm not doing. And if you're doing something that I'm not doing, I'm going to shore that up, because I'm not going to put the burden of leadership on our family, like on you. And of course, there are areas that I lead in. I run Rise Up Queens, right? I do a lot of, I help with the kids. I help shape them. There's a lot of areas where I lead. And he sees it as a privilege to go first. So that would mean he's not constantly keeping score and comparing, or we're not constantly keeping score and comparing. Okay, well, I did this, now I expect you to do this. Or I did this, and now you have to do this. Or I'm not going to do this because you didn't do this. See, he also sees it as a privilege. I've met many men who are like, well, I'm working, so she needs to be doing this. That's very practical. So I'm providing here, she needs to do this. And Skylar's had this stance our whole relationship that, hey, babe, I just want you to do what you want. I want you to have fun during the day. I want you to do what you want. I want you to do what you're passionate about. Because his overarching objective is to keep me, or creating an environment where I can stay in my feminine. So men, part of your wife being fun and playful and going with the flow relies on whether you are leading and you are showing up and seeing it as a privilege for you to go first. See, in him not putting stress on me, like, well, you have to do this, I can go with the flow. I can be playful, and we can create polarity in our relationship. So he doesn't show up, like number 3, he doesn't show up as a victim to me, right? He doesn't act in response to me. He acts out of his commitment of who he is as a man. And we both try and do this. So when I work with women at the Rise Up Queens event, I want to be the type of woman that regardless of how Skylar acts, I show up anyways, because that's who God has called me to be. So who has God called you to be as a husband, regardless of whether your wife is showing up for you? See, what I find so many times in relationship as we work with men and women in our events is that we show up on a conditional basis. I'm going to love you until you don't do something I want. So, for example, men would say, I'm going to show up and listen to you on the couch or help with the dishes until you don't give me sex. Very conditional. Or women will say, I will give you sex until you aren't romantic and show up for me emotionally. So both those instances, we're not acting out of a place of commitment because this is who I say I am. We're acting out of the role of the victim, that I'm going to act until you don't give me appreciation or give me what I want. And when we put ourselves in that position where we're in response to our partner, we are bound to feel angry, resentful, lonely, despair, hopelessness, bitterness, all of that. Things that are going to create disconnection in your relationship. And so when you show up for your spouse, are you in the role of the victim, and are those feelings present often, or are you clear on who you're going to be, that you are going to love them like Jesus? So regardless of how they show up, and I get it, some of them haven't been showing up. Some of you guys have been punishing each other for a long time. So this concept might be very hard to hear. You're like, well, I'm not going to do it until she does it. And where is that getting you? Is that working? And so if it's not working for you, would you be willing to do something different and instead get firmly rooted on what you're willing to do? And can you lead first? Are you willing to lead first and lead in healing and love them like the Lord would love them, because he loved you when you shouldn't have been loved, right? I have to go back to that place of, sometimes I meet with women and they're like, well, I don't feel like it. I'm not getting my needs met. They're not doing this. They're not doing this. And they're not doing this. And what if God was like that? Like, you know what? You don't deserve love. You don't deserve respect. You don't deserve me to show up for you. Man, that would be such a sad, versus I'm going to love you even when you're unlovable. I'm going to love you and create space for you. I'm going to love you like I would want to be loved. I'm going to give you grace like I'd want grace. And so are you willing to act from your commitment and not in response to the other person? And I get this is a big thing and many of you would want to turn off. And this is next level. This is you stepping into your masculine role and the men that we need in our society. As a man, are you fiercely committed to following the Lord, right? So when I mean fiercely committed to following the Lord, I'm not just saying, are you in your Bible every day? Are you praying every day? And if you're not doing that, maybe that's a start. But I'm talking about, are you fiercely committed to abolishing porn and lust in your life? Are you going to be the generation, maybe breaker, that your commitment to purity is next level so that you can honor your wife, so that you can set an example for your daughter's future husband when he has that challenge? Are you fiercely committed to following God so much so that you will go get help on things that are hindering your walk so that you can be an example to this next generation? Another thing that we need, the masculine men that we need, have their identity so rooted in God that they are able to take feedback. See, I meet men at our events at Rise Up Kings almost weekly, right? Or monthly, no matter what. And they do not allow space in their life for their wives to give them feedback. And the reason why is because they take everything personal. So their wife can't bring feedback like, hey, I don't feel like a priority, because then that husband says, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm never going to be good enough. You don't love me. I'm not worthy. And they begin to self-bash themselves. But what that does is that hijacks the conversation where the wife, or if a woman does this, the wife can't bring feedback because the husband can't even hear it, because his identity is rooted in his performance rather than being rooted in what the Lord says about him. So are you willing to begin to root your identity in God so that there's space for feedback? And I get it. I'm a recovering perfectionist. So anytime Skylar used to bring feedback, I used to get super triggered because my worth and my value were in what other people said and how I performed and the money that I made. And it was very ineffective in relationships. Today's men need to be rooted in who the Lord says they are so that there's space, and so that when feedback comes, it doesn't feel like an attack. See, when feedback comes in the relationships, you have two options. You can take it as an attack, that they're attacking you, that they are shaming you, that you're not good enough, you're not enough. Or you can see it as an opportunity to grow, that there's space for you to grow into. See, in your businesses, if you're in business, if there was a challenge, you don't just cower down and say, we're going to lose the business, right? You're like, okay, how do I go solve this? Well, it could be translated into feedback with your wife also. Can you begin to see it as an opportunity that she cares enough to lean in to say, hey, I need more from you? Because the opposite of her caring that much to say it would be to go to withdraw, to punish, to be revengeful, and just put up walls with you. So you're still in a space, if she's not happy with something and she's bringing it to you, you're in a space where change is possible. It's scary when you're in the place that she's not bringing anything to you. And so can you begin to root your identity deeper in the Lord so that you don't take things personal and there's space for you to continue to grow as a man? So 2 more points. So if you are not subscribed, definitely subscribe. There is more on what women need here, more on porn, more on commitment, more on relationships, communication, intimacy, all of those things. Are you willing to lay down your pride and say sorry first? Willing to lay down your ego? See, I believe there's two options in marriage. You often get to be right or you get to be in relationship. For some of you, it's so intense that you can be right or you can stay married. Some of you have been wanted or needed to be right so long that you've created massive division in your relationship and your partner feels like they can't win. So would you be willing to begin to lay down your pride and see it for what it is, which is sin, and begin to allow the Lord to work on that and be willing to step into some humility sometimes? So lastly, I want to leave you with the men that we need know the difference between an apology and forgiveness. See, an apology, you say, hey, I'm sorry, is what an apology is. Hey, I'm sorry for hurting your feelings. I'm sorry I didn't show up. I'm sorry this. But I'm sorry only goes so far because there's no exposure for you. See, in forgiveness, when you say, will you forgive me? That releases control to the other person. Then the other person gets to say yes or say no, but you are no longer in control. And so in your relationships, the men we need, that's another act of humility. The men we need in today's society know the difference in I'm sorry that creates no exposure for them. And will you forgive me? And they are willing to open themselves up to deal with challenges in their relationship. They're willing to have the hard conversations. See, at one point, Skylar came to me and said, hey, I'm not going to bring things to you because you're just going to blow up. And that would have not been effective. I said, Skylar, I need you to bring this stuff to me. Because if you don't bring it to me, you rob you of the ability of being known in our relationship, and you rob me of the ability to change. Because if you're not bringing the stimulus, I don't get to try and do something different. And I think that was a pivotal moment in our relationship. And he chose to lean into the hard things. He was willing to lead first, do hard things, even if it meant it created disruption in our relationship temporarily. He was committed to the bigger picture in our relationship. So he was willing to step in. So that was a lot of points. I'd love to hear what stood out most to you and what you're going to do about it. If you got to this point in the video and you're not subscribed, subscribe. And if you got to this point in this video, I would love to know what you're committed to shifting. How are you going to go about stepping into your role as a leader that we need? Thank you for watching.